So hi guys, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for coming over.
I'm here with Mark and Autumn Powers, and I'm super excited to be here. You guys are very interesting and fun people to be around. And we met, you and I, Mark, on a gig actually through a mutual friend, and you are a phenomenal drummer.
You are a phenomenal singer.
Oh,
yeah, working with Sherry
you.
Somerville is always a treat.
I know,
It's
isn't she
awesome.
fantastic?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then as it turns out, that was around Halloween. And I don't know how we got on the topic, you and I, but it turns out we were Halloween fans.
Yes.
And you started naming movies, and I was like, oh my God.
That's my influence.
She and her mother are huge horror movie fans.
Really?
Yes, we will spend hours trying to pick the right one, and it's got to be scary but not cheesy. We got this internal list of criteria that it has to meet, and most people are like, what are you two doing? But it's like, nope, it's got to be the right scare.
Yeah, they will be pretty hard on horror movies. So we'll sit up at night when we're visiting her parents, and always the plan is to watch a horror movie, and they start watching the beginning of a movie or a trailer, and I'm into it immediately.
Oh, we can tell in 3 seconds.
This is great. And they're like, nope, it's gone.
No.
What? No, that was great.
It's too
but
cheesy. Yeah.
Trash that one.
pretty hard on the
So
horror
Halloween is my mother's favorite, and even during Christmas she has a Halloween tree to represent.
Oh, yeah.
I've had a Halloween tree before, but it was during Halloween, so you know.
It's got ghoul
It's got
babies,
demon
and axes,
baby, and
it's awesome.
Michael Myers masks.
Well, there you go then.
So-
Well, I'm a huge Halloween fan, and I think my love of Halloween comes from when I was a kid. I was a little bit shy, except for in music, and my mom sewed like the wind, and she would always sew my Halloween costume.
Oh my gosh.
And I felt like when I was in costume, I could be whoever I wanted to be. I didn't have to be this shy little kid anymore, right? So that was just the best. Plus, I won a lot of the costume contests at school, which gave a little bit of more of a confidence. It was a little bit of a confidence builder too. So, not to mention candy, of course.
Of course.
So, but yeah,
about
huge.
candy.
So you guys went with me to a local professional haunt called the Davis Graveyard.
Amazing.
Oh my
Right,
gosh,
and-
it was so cool.
Do you guys want to describe what it was like?
Go ahead.
I just remember pulling up around the corner, and first of all, just seeing the sea of people out front that are just there to check out the graveyard.
Right.
And getting to go behind the scenes was even cooler.
And walking up, and there is this gate, and there's these flashing lights and these sounds, and all of these people just, leaning in, and we're like, we get to go in that? And then this guy comes up and somehow knows who we are.
Yeah.
Don't know why. Probably add into the
Somehow
spooky.
I
because of
added your name on the list. You were my
That's why.
guests.
But
so.
he knew before getting a name.
It's like, you must be, Powers. Like,
Yeah, and I got in there, and he's like, I don't know these people. I'm like, oh, they're with me, and he goes, oh, okay.
They have the chapel in the driveway that they built. Yeah,
right.
It's just super, super cool.
If you want to check that out, I think it's davisgraveyard.com, maybe. So you can also Google it, the Davis Graveyard. So check it out.
highly
So.
recommend it.
it's
Yes.
pretty
Yeah,
cool.
super fun.
Yes.
Here we are in the beginning of the year, in almost spring, talking about Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
That's how much of a Halloween fan we
Yes,
are.
I already want to go back.
So tell me, what are we cooking today?
So it's funny that you mentioned how you were shy. I was a super shy kid. I was actually really sick all the time, and I spent a ton of time with my dad's mom, Grandma Irene. And this is a classic Grandma Irene ham and cabbage soup. And she would make this 1 week out of the month, every Sunday, and the whole family would come over. And there were, my uncles and aunt and my folks, and she would just feed all of us. And it actually was a big pot like this. And she would start it in the morning, and she throws in chunks of cabbage and big chunks of, doesn't look that great right now, but it actually tastes good. That is burning my hand.
Well,
I'm gonna
just
put that
stir it
down.
up. Stir it up, friend.
Chunks of potatoes.
Oh my gosh!
There's a
Look
big pork
at
hock in
that.
there.
And she puts ham hocks in there with the bone in because it's that marrow in there that drips out and it adds to that flavor of the broth. And it was something very healthy, very hearty, and she would feed all of us with it. And every time I ate it, I just felt that it was nourishing, it was just comfortable. And I don't have my grandma now, but every time I make it, I think of her. And we were very, very poor.
Oh, don't get choked up.
I know.
saw
I know.
that. I saw that.
It's like Grandma Irene. She taught me about the birds,
Aw.
everything. But she, no matter what tension was happening in the family, didn't matter. We'd all show up Sundays with dinners, and she just fed everybody. And growing up really poor, she had a garden, and a lot of the potatoes and stuff would come from her garden. Not the ham. Didn't raise any pigs, but carrots came.
Right.
And but she would always send home an additional pot of this with my mom and dad so that we could eat. My grandmother always made sure we were fed, that we could eat, and it was healthy. And she was also a believer in summertime that you still eat hot soup because it keeps you hydrated. And so we would have this year round. And so I just, it's one thing I can make. I'm not a cook. I wouldn't classify myself as a cook. I'm
But
more
this
of a,
looks outstanding.
it's like, this is something I can do.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
And it just brings back that good,
well,
good
food and
memory.
family often, go hand in hand. They did with my family. There was always room for however many people came. My brother and I always invited friends, and there was always enough. Both my parents were teachers, and it wasn't always, especially when I was younger, a flowing meal, but there was always enough, always, whether it was biscuits or they made bread or whatever, right? So to me, food means that comfort, that family kind of thing, like it does to you too. So yeah, and actually, I know what you mean about, I know about the getting choked up. I lost my dad 4 years ago today.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, but and this is a great day to record for that because it's kind of a celebration. Here we are talking about food and family, and so it's actually a nice thing. So.
And how much this, it still impacts me to this day, or I just think of, I being an artist and illustrator, my main topic are birds, and she taught me about the birds, and so I'm making art and eating food that she has this great influence. And when you stop and think about it, I would have never thought, oh yeah, when I'm a little kid, Grandma, you're gonna make me an artist, you're gonna keep me fed when I'm in my mid-40s, and she's still doing it. So yeah, it's just,
it's a nice thing.
It is a
so
nice
tell me
thing.
what's in this healthy.
Yeah, so super simple because, as Mark and I are always up to something. Like
What?
Exactly, right?
No.
On the go.
We're like, oh, let's make a book. Let's go join a bouldering gym. Let's go on a hike. Let's go do this. So we put in a lot of our energy in all these creative pursuits. So for us, cooking kind of takes a back seat. And so whatever we make has to be super simple and mainly just put it in a pot, put it in a crock pot, let it simmer. And so in this is just ham, a ham hock to get that bone broth going, carrots, red potatoes, cabbage, a ton of cabbage.
Red potatoes.
Red potatoes.
Reds.
Grandma was super smart on that.
Yeah, cabbage, some veggie broth, and then water and salt. And
Water and salt. I love
super,
it.
super simple. That's kind of us.
Yeah. And anything you can do in the slow cooker, the better. To be able to
Just
get it going before you take off for the
Kind
day's
of
craziness.
automatic cooking.
So this is have you cooked it in this or like an actual crock pot or in this beautiful soup pot?
I've
all
done
day?
both. This I did today because I wanted to make a ton of it, and as we will eat off of it for several days.
Well, the crew doesn't get any? No.
Oh yeah, you all do too.
I'm totally kidding. Totally kidding.
Totally, that's why they're talking.
So how long do you cook it in the crock pot?
I set it on, so if I'm starting it a little bit later in the day, I'll turn it on high for like the 4-hour mark. But this I started, it's been going 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah, probably about
And so in
6
the
now.
crock pot, I like to do the slower cook.
On like and this is on one
This
now.
is, and I started it on 4 and then kept moving it down. as it got later in the day, and I just would check in on how it was looking and the texture of the potatoes and the carrots. And as it started to, you can get that fork in it, then I turned the heat way down.
The beautiful thing about using red potatoes is that they're a firmer potato,
right.
So they don't break down
Not
as
gonna
much.
fall apart.
They're not going to fall apart. They're not going to cook more quickly than the carrot, for example. And they're really delicious for breakfast as well. One of my favorite things is the potatoes and onions together. Ooh. I don't know why that's like
interesting.
A weakness when you're cooking up. It's like, it smells so good to me. But the red potatoes are a great option because they still have some of that body when you're done cooking them up.
Baby reds are a favorite. I love them.
Yeah, aren't they great?
They're great.
Yeah. So you mentioned, I know you're an artist, and Mark, you're a drummer.
I am.
I've already mentioned that's how we met, but darn. I mean, I've been reading that you've traveled. I'm just going to say, is there somewhere in the world you haven't traveled? Because you've been everywhere, and it seems like you've studied with, different cultures in drumming and percussion and rhythms. And tell me more about that.
There are way too many places that I have not gotten to travel yet. That list is still very, very long, and I'm looking forward to checking more of them off. But yeah, I have had the fortune of getting to study with a number of great teachers, both here in the States and abroad. The first time I left the country at all was to go live in a little village called Cookbook in the southeast corner of Ghana, West Africa, just study percussion there for several months. And I've spent time studying in West Africa and Cuba and Puerto Rico, and I really love that, not only because I'm able to bring those influences back and take into schools and do programs when I do teaching artists programs, but also those ideas, even if I'm not using them authentically, they end up getting somehow integrated and somewhat bastardized into the musics that I play. And I think it's a lot of that sort of amalgamation of ideas that end up being what people see as being very creative. And for a long time I never felt that was creativity. I always felt that it was just me mashing ideas together and just running with whatever came out. And over the years I've realized that it is its own form of creativity. But yeah, any chance I get, I can't say no to an opportunity to travel somewhere or to take lessons with somebody.
You studied with someone. Tell me more about that story.
That would be Rakalam Bob Moses.
That is a great name.
Yeah, Rakalam means the inaudible sound of the invisible sun. It was a name that was given to him by his spiritual guide. And I took a 3-hour drum lesson from Rakalam several years ago at the New England Conservatory in Boston. Uh-huh. And during that 3-hour lesson, drum set lesson, sort of, we probably spent 15 minutes on the drum set and spent most of the rest of the time dancing around the room and vocalizing different things. And the thing you're referring to was a moment in the lesson when he asked me to play a drum solo. So he actually played with 2 fingers on a piano, as maybe a vibraphonist would play with 2 mallets, and plunked out a little melody on a piano, and I was playing a little jazz time along with him on the drum set. And at some point he stopped and turned it over to me to play. And
this was your big test moment,
exactly.
Right?
I'm like ready to take my solo and impress Bob Moses. And so I play this solo, and we wrap up. He comes back in and plays a little bit. We finish, and he just leans on his piano and looks at me, just bewildered, completely just looking at me.
Crap!
Yeah,
what do I do?
He's like, what am I going to say? And he looks at me and he says, "You had," kind of paraphrasing, I can't remember now. It's been a long time, but he said, you had like all kinds of amazing ideas, but you didn't commit to one of them. And I just remember going, what? Like, oh man, that's so horrible.
I want to cry.
Yeah, totally. And then he came over from the piano and grabbed a couple of sticks, which are these little hand-whittled, West African mallets, basically, and standing on the opposite side of the drum set, started taking one of my little rhythms I had played and played it on the rim of the high tom over the top, and then was hitting the rim, and then he started kicking the heating register and started vocalizing stuff over the top, and he built this whole really cool drum solo.
So he was using his body as an instrument.
Exactly. Every aspect of his being as an instrument. And And he took that one little motif that I had and played this amazing solo out of it. And his whole point was that instead of throwing, lick A to lick B to lick C and throwing the kitchen sink in on a solo, which is what I now try to get through to my students a lot these days, you can take one of those ideas, milk it for all it's worth, really develop it, get a lot of mileage out of it, and then you have all of this other material for future solos or fills or whatever. And it's a way more musical approach rather than just kind of puking everything you have out, and instead you're really developing an idea, which...
Yeah, and that's applicable to any solo,
it's
right?
applicable to anything in life, I think, actually.
Yeah. That's a really nice metaphor, and I loved, thank you for sharing that story, because I loved hearing that on your TEDx talk, and I encourage people to go find it. What's your website?
powerspercussion.com.
And there's a link to it on that,
I'm sure
I
there's
think.
probably.
Yeah, it's really, I encourage people to go watch that. So
cool.
So Autumn, you post all the time on the drawings that you do.
Yes.
You are a really good artist. I mean, oh my gosh. And you said you draw mostly birds, but all I've seen, I think I saw an otter and some other kind of a monkey in the last few days. I mean, like, you're impressively fast. Do you have a studio in the house?
I do. It's just right around the corner.
Really? Can we go take a look?
And you'll see the otter
I'd love to
sitting
see
on
it.
my
Let's go.
desk. Kind of like Mark said, going deep with one thing. I'm trying to master drawing with the ballpoint pen, and that's it. Just getting very simple, using a single ballpoint pen, and practicing with animals.
So what's your favorite medium?
I love watercolor and ink pen. I love watercolor because there's a part of it I can never control. And you cannot control watercolor to a point. It forces you to work through it. And I was an elementary school teacher since last Friday was my last day.
I know. You've been an elementary school teacher too, but let's keep on the art thing here for a second.
Yeah, and I was going to that because as a teacher, my life and day is so controlled.
Regimented.
Every minute, every time segment. And so when I come home, working with art, I just want to be able to just flow with something a little bit more. And I think that's why I'm drawn to watercolor and just accepting that, knowing that I have to just just accept parts, and I think that's part of nature too. You can't control it. You just gotta flow with it.
Gotta go with it.
And there's freedom in that. There's permission.
I'm working on my own flow right now as well, so trying not to control things too much, and I've done really well in kind of getting out of that habit of, controlling your life, right?
Yes.
So there's a lot to be said for flow, and it's apropos that you just mentioned that as well. So I want to talk to you about your books. I know you've written like 15. I counted 15. There's probably more.
I've contributed, so I've done some illustrations for Mark's drumming books. I've done...
Mark has drumming books?
Yes, he does. He's got all kinds of stuff.
On Amazon, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then you have your own...
They're all available on Amazon or through my Etsy shop.
And are these stories or?
I have a picture book store. I have a couple of stories. I've got a creative art journal because I want to inspire creativity and play. And even though we're adults, we can still play. There's writing prompts. It's kind of a mishmash of all kinds of things on there.
Right.
Yeah. So like I said, I was like, whatever. I'm interested in doing this one thing today. So let's do it. And Mark is always great about. He's like the actualizer. Like I can come up with ideas,
You're
but I'm like,
actualizer,
Mark, how do I get this to happen? And he's like, okay, and he immediately goes into a plan. Like, if you have an idea, he'll figure it out. Like, he will I don't know how he does it, but he does it.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So how did you get started in art? I mean, were you always...
Shy little girl.
Oh.
Yeah, and I actually, for the longest time, people didn't know I could draw. I hid it. Even as an adult.
Really?
Yes. Because I was painfully shy, and it was just something that it was just a quiet activity I could just get lost in, and it's also something I continued just as a stress relief. Just to sit and draw is really relaxing. And it wasn't that long ago as an adult, I finally put up a shop and started, with his encouragement, what would happen if you just started showing this? Why don't you go check out that coffee shop and put your art in there? Okay.
You were really good. I mean, I'm actually surprised that you weren't that you didn't have your artist coming out before then, because you were really talented.
Self-confidence, big critic. Totally, just when you say it's, oh, you're so good, I'm like, oh, but I can see in that picture all the things I need to get better.
I totally get it. I understand. So, well, that is a huge thing for you to be able to publish all those books, and for you too. How many books do you have, Mark?
Yeah, Mark, how many books do you have?
I don't know.
He's got a ton.
A number that I've done or I've co-written and been involved with a number of people. Not sure. Probably about a dozen or so.
Yeah.
That is so impressive.
Yeah, some instructional drumming things, and then
kids' books
that have been and some little kids' board books. Some traditionally published stuff and some self-published things.
So you're easy to find on Amazon. I just went on Amazon and went and put in Mark Powers. You are not so easy to find.
I have a direct link because my name changed when I got married to this guy.
Aww, so sweet.
So I have a direct link on my website, autumnpowers.com, where you can find all my books there as well.
Which is how I discovered them.
Yeah.
So that was pretty great. And you're an amazing writer. I should not say amazing one more time. You're pretty darn tootin' good at writing as well. So, when I read your bio, I was like, oh, wow, that is so well written, and I'm totally drawn in. And I felt that same sense of engagement with your writing that I felt when I watched Mark's TEDx talk. That sense of drawing me in, and I was like, if I ever get the chance, I mean, if you ever wrote like a novel, I'd be like all over it. I'd be like, oh my God.
I have novels started.
It's almost in the editing phase.
Yes, last push.
Well, I have 2.5 books written, and I don't know if they'll ever see the light of day. This is fascinating being in this space. Such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and we're really grateful too that Mark has his own studio just right above us.
What? You have a studio in this household?
You want to check it out?
Dang, yes I do.
Let's do it.
I am insanely jealous.
Yeah,
oh my gosh. So we're in this small, what would have been a small bedroom. Mm-hmm. And, you've got the soundproofing on the walls, but you also have decorated it with like these kind of wood panels. I'm assuming that's flooring.
Yep, it's a little tongue and groove action back there.
That's beautiful. And then you've got your kit. To your left is like a little control panel. And then in front of you is this, I don't know, is this a 60-inch screen?
I think it's close. It's 51, I think. Yeah. I do
awesome.
Do quite a bit of remote recording work here, sending tracks out to artists all over the place.
Really? So people send music to you to add
I spent a lot of time right in front of here recording drums. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, when we got in here, and again, like I'd said earlier, a space like this for a drummer was no longer a luxury, but a necessity when the pandemic set in. I set this up to be able to teach out of, so I've got 3 cameras that are ready to go.
Wow,
with a little
I'm just
video.
now aware of it.
Yeah,
We are on camera.
Little video switcher. Got my interfaces, and the drums are fully mic'd. Got some microphones on the ceiling as well.
See, to me, this is so counterintuitive because, well, I mean, I've been in the studio a lot. Even in my younger years, I was recording on other people's albums and with groups and things like that. So, I mean, we were always taught that, you have to lay it down. It's stronger if it's together in the same space, in the same room, because you have, the sound, the acoustics, of that room matter, right? So if you have a piano player in a different studio and whatever, that it's hard to match and bring them together. So this surprises me. I mean, I'm completely impressed.
Yeah, it's not at all uncommon these days. I mean, definitely the pandemic made it even more common, but it was a thing even before then, but nothing that I was doing myself in a remote sense. Obviously, being in a studio at the same time as a bunch of other musicians brings a totally different element, because you can work faster sometimes in some ways because you can all just bounce ideas around off each other, and then, like you said, sonically you're in the same space, which certainly
sonically
has,
I love that.
has a different, makes a difference. But at the same time, these days, more stuff is recorded this way than people realize, and you're completely able to, with effects, to add effects to an overall mix to make it sound somewhat like people are in the same space. So yeah, a lot of these days, probably 75% of the recording I do is just right here, and I have just all of my different drums and percussion instruments at my disposal, so I don't have to load up the truck and take everything, including the kitchen sink, to a session, even though I'm probably not going to use it. Until you start recording, drummers will often have a tambourine, and once you start recording, you have 20 tambourines, because you play a tambourine part, and suddenly somebody says, "That's cool, but do you have something darker?" And you have to have a darker sound, and it's the same with cymbals or anything else. You have to have all of these options, and so that is one aspect of being able to do it myself. Here, it's absolutely the best, because I don't have to load up everything imaginable.
You have this beautiful wall of instruments over there.
Yep, and there are more hiding elsewhere.
Do you usually play with a glass of wine in your hand?
Do pretty much everything with a glass of wine.
Oh,
in my
really?
hands.
Oh, perfect. Would you be willing to play anything and freak out my sound guy?
Only if you scat with me.
Sure, I'll scat with you.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
How's that?
And we ended at the same time. Nice.
High five. No virtual 5-5s here, man. That was awesome. Thank you very much. That was fun.
Super fun.
Awesome. Well, I don't know about you, but I am starving. We should, the smell of the soup
all the way up here.
Yeah, all the way up
eat
here. Let's do it. Yeah, you're actually acting for a video for another band that I know and love, because they've been on the podcast before, the Colin Trio.
Oh, the Colin Trio, nice. Yeah, Colin Trio's great. I love those guys.
I didn't even mention that you actually record with the band Floater.
Yeah.
They're pretty big. They've been around. They're established.
Awesome. Yeah. No,
American rock. Established.
I love playing with the band.
Do you guys want to go in the other room?
Sure.
Have a sit?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Boy, this soup is hot.
It is. It's hot.
I love your house, by the way.
Thanks. We got in here right before the pandemic.
I don't know if you can see my face right now. I just took my first bite of this concoction. Grandma Irene, right?
Grandma Irene. This was her.
Her hearty cabbage and ham.
It is hearty.
That's gonna heal you from anything.
Is. Wow. I mean, it's perfect. When you chopped this up, how small did you chop the cabbage?
Cabbage, I wouldn't say it was super, super small. Actually, probably the ham got diced smaller than most of the other pieces, really.
Did you quarter the red potatoes?
Yeah, most of them.
Probably, yeah.
Do what?
Quarter the red potatoes.
Oh, quarter them. Yeah, right. That's good. Quartering red potatoes, a good thing.
And I think with the cabbage, you just sliced it and chopped it and threw it in.
One way, the other way.
Yep.
All good.
I let him do all the cutting.
Kinda shredded it
because
apart.
Anytime I have a knife, I always cut my fingers.
great
He's in charge of the cutting.
Great with paintbrushes, not knives.
I am.
You know that tradition your grandmother had about sending the soup away? Yes, please. So this soup is so delicious. Thank you so very much for inviting me into your home and talking to me about art and percussion and music and just all the things that you are.
Thanks for coming and hanging out and eating.
I really appreciate it.
It's awesome.